Welcome to Purple Crafters. If you want to learn how to do this, watch the video till the end and I will teach you how and share with you some basic rules as well as some tips to follow in doing brush calligraphy. So let's get started. The materials that we are going to be using for this tutorial include, of course, first and foremost is the paper. I am using the calligraphy pad. This is actually a gift from a friend, but I'm pretty sure you can buy this from your local craft store. Or you can also use a regular jotter pad. You just have to make sure that the paper is smooth, so whenever you write, it's gonna be a smoother finish texture. So you also need a ruler, a pencil. I am gonna be using a mechanical pencil, and also an eraser. I will be using a kneaded eraser because I use this for all of my drawings and arts and crafts. Now let's go to the pen. There's actually a lot of pen that you can get out there, but it totally depends on what you need it for and of course personal preference. I have Faber-Castell. I actually bought this from Lazada when it was on sale back in December 2017. So this is how it looks like when you use it to write. And then I have these dual tip brush pens. One is from Tokyo Finds and then the other is from Zig Brushables. This Tokyo Finds doodle pen actually has a brush tip pen on one side and then just a regular permanent felt pen on the other side. So this is how it looks like when you use it to write. As you can see, the tip is already frayed because I've used this a lot. And then this other one, the Zig Brushables, actually has both brush tip pens. It's just a different color on each side. So this is how it looks like when you use it to write. Now sometimes I also use a water brush, but you need a watercolor, or you can put ink in this water barrel here at the bottom. And this is how it will look like if you use it to write your brush calligraphy. Now the disadvantage of this is that you would have to have a very steady hand, and also it doesn't give you a very consistent color. It gives you this gradient effect, but if that's the look that you're going for, of course the advantage is that the brush is really soft and it's really flexible, and if this is the look that you're going for, then I would suggest you use a water brush. Now this last one is the Kuretake from Japan. It actually has this Japanese characters that I don't know how to read, but this is how it looks like. And this is actually my favorite because the brush pen is really firm and it doesn't fray too much, especially when you write on it a lot. So this is how it looks like when you use this to write on your brush calligraphy. Now I'll share with you tips and the rules that I follow throughout the years that I've been doing brush calligraphy. There's actually not one rule because this is freehand, and because this is freehand, the letters would look differently per person, and that's actually going to give a personality to your brush calligraphy. However, if we follow some basic guidelines, our writing or calligraphy writing would tend to look more consistent, and if it is consistent, it will be more presentable, organized, and it would look more professional. So first, let's create 4 lines that are evenly spaced in between. So I'm just gonna eyeball it for demonstration purposes. There's 1, 2, 3, and then 4. Alright, so there would be 3 spaces in between these 4 lines, and the middle part is where you will write your letters. Now this is going to be your baseline. This is where the base of your letters will fall onto, and this will be your X bar or your X height. And this is where most of the top of your letters will stop, especially the letter X. That is why it is called X bar. Now this uppermost line is called the ascender line, and that is because all the letters that have ascending lines at the top, like the letter B or the letter H, would all fall at the top of the guideline. And then the last one is called the descender line. Letters that have descending lines, like the letter G or the letter Y, would all have the descending lines up to the bottom line. Now, how do we hold the pen? So you just have to make sure that you can write in a slant. Normally it is in a 55-degree angle, but it doesn't have to be too exact. As long as you're holding the pen comfortably, and then you can write at a certain angle, so your letters would look more consistent. Now let's talk about the types of strokes. Now all downward strokes should be a thick line, so you should put more pressure on the pen. All upward strokes need to be a thin line, so less pressure on the pen. That is why these brush pens have very flexible nibs that are pointed, so that whenever you create a downward stroke and put more pressure, more surface of the pen or nib would be on the paper, and then less pressure would just be the point. Now there are certain strokes in which combined would create all the letters in the alphabet. So these are the basic strokes that we need to practice. So we have the U, so downward and then upward thin line, downward thick, upward thin line. So downward more pressure, upward less pressure. So continue to practice this until you have mastered this type of stroke. And then the inverted U, which of course is first the upward stroke, which will be thin, and then downward, which will be a thick line. So we need to apply more pressure. So upward thin line, downward thick line. Upward less pressure, downward more pressure. And then the O. So first is we start around here, and actually depends on you how you write your O, but then I start around here, so just thin line, then apply more pressure, and then go back to thin line. So let's do that again. Thick line, and then thin line going back up. So close the loop. So apply less and then more pressure, and then less pressure. So this really takes practice to master. It's not going to be just a one-day process. You really have to get your hands used to this type of writing. And then we have this kind of stroke where you would have to have a wave, like a wave type of stroke. It's a thin line upward stroke, and then thick line, and then thin line again. So thin, thick line, thin line. So less pressure, more pressure, and then less pressure. And then we have this type of stroke for ascending lines. So less pressure and then more pressure. Thin line, thick line, thin line, thick line. And then for descending lines, we start with downward stroke, which is of course more pressure, thick line, and then upward stroke with a thin line. Now let's do that again. So more pressure, less pressure, going back up. Now as soon as you know how to do all these basic strokes, you can combine them, and then you can create the entire English alphabet out of these basic strokes. Now let's go ahead and write the entire alphabet from A to Z, and then I'll share with you some more tips as we go along. So first is, of course, the letter A. We have this stroke, which is the letter O. And then we connect it with this stroke, which is the U. So thick stroke downward, and then thin stroke upward. And then whenever you end a letter, you have to at least end it at the X height around here, so that whenever you connect the next letter, it will be easier for it to connect, and it will look more consistent. So let's go ahead and write the letter B. Thin stroke, thick downstroke, and then thin stroke again upward, thick downstroke, and then loop, and then go back to the X height. Now sometimes the letter B can be written in this format. So let's start with the ascending line, and then go back with the loop here on the X height. But I would prefer this first one because it looks more consistent and it is easier to write. And then the letter C, and the letter D, letter E, and then the letter F would have both the ascending line and then the descending line touching. So go ahead and start from the top and then connect the descending line. G, letter H, letter I, letter J, K, the letter L, and then the letter M, and let's start a new line. Letter N, O, P, Q, and then R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and the Z. So a few points. Whenever you have a loop like the letter R, it would have to be above the X bar or below the baseline, like the letter B. It doesn't necessarily have to be all the way below the baseline or above the X bar, but it has to be overlapping the line a little bit. So like the letter Z. Or the letter S. So the letter S would just go a little bit above the X bar and then the baseline. Now for some of you guys who are just starting out with brush calligraphy or just trying out calligraphy in general, you don't always have to have a brush pen. You can always use a regular felt tip pen to practice. So how do we do that? Since this is only a fine point pen, it doesn't have a varying thickness of line or degree. When you increase pressure, you just have to fake it. So let's say you want to write the alphabet. Let's start with the letter A. You write with a single line first, and then fake the thick lines by repeating the strokes downward, and then continue. Now this is a little bit more time consuming, but of course sometimes this would look better if you're writing in a smaller scale. So let's say you just want to write this small. Then this will do the job. Now once you have mastered all these basic techniques, you can go ahead and write without a guideline, but I would always recommend to use a guideline, especially if you're going to do it professionally. But for this demonstration purposes, let's go ahead and do a freehand. So I'm going to write my channel name here, which is Purple Crafters. You actually can do some flourishes, and I would suggest you write it in a quick stroke so it will look more fluid. And there you have it. Thank you for watching this video. If you guys want me to do a review on brush pens, let me know in the comments. If you like this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to Purple Crafters to get notified of the latest content.